Welcome to I Know How You Feel, a podcast for common experiences not so commonly shared. This is a platform for growth, connection, and mindful conversation. Today on the podcast, we have Jenna. Jenna is a mom of twin boys and a little girl, and an occupational therapist who has a passion for working with the mother baby dyad through their journey from conception to birth. Let's connect with Jenna. Hi, Jenna. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey Kim, thanks for having me.
So excited to talk to you today. I know motherhood is such a, journey of strength and resilience, but a journey starting with twins is a whole different thing. So I wanted to get right into it and wanted to know if you could share a little bit about your health journey before becoming pregnant with your twins.
Yes, absolutely. So I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, when I was like 15 or 16, right? Or no, maybe even sooner. It wasn't too long after I started having periods. Um, and was told, oh, you'll probably always need help getting pregnant. It'll probably be difficult for you. So I didn't really think I had anything to worry about. And my husband and I, we weren't trying for very long before we decided to take a break, maybe 5 months or so. So not even that long. And then we decided that I was going to start seeing a functional nutritional practitioner. I started with her in September of 2021 and ran some labs, did some blood work, got me on some supplements, and started a parasite detox protocol. And then we were just about to start, or we just started round two of that along with a mold detox. And I got pregnant end of January when we were not trying anymore because I was, trying to take care of my health and do all this stuff. So it was at that point a surprise. I did not need any fertility help. They came naturally, and it was definitely a surprise. Twins run in my family, so we knew that it was a chance, but I mean, never did I really think, oh, it's gonna be me.
Yeah, I would say going through PCOS, which you know, I think maybe some of our listeners have gone through some fertility issues or gone through something similar, but that's definitely one where they do tell you, that's a little bit more difficult to get pregnant. So the fact that you were surprised with two babies um,
Yeah.
is is a big deal. I want to just go back a little bit and talk about your functional medicine journey because I think it's a unique story that you did parasite and mold detoxing and then were able to get pregnant. Did your functional medicine provider kind of talk with you about, like how this would support you getting pregnant? I mean, I don't think typically it's what people go straight towards. When they're thinking about fertility and getting pregnant, they usually go a different route. So how did you, I guess, find this route and how did your functional medicine doctor talk to you about how it would help you get pregnant?
Yeah, great question. So I found this route through my sister who was working with the same lady who I ended up working with. And she's like, everything is a little different. They don't look at the same labs as Western, they look at it as more functional. And I mean, I've had IBS and stomach issues and things my whole life, but everything with at my doctor's office has been normal. Like they can't find why I'm having migraine headaches all the time. I mean, for years, they can't find out why my stomach hurts so much all the time. Even with cutting out, I've been gluten free since, oh, I don't know, it's been 13 years now, over 13 years I've been gluten free. And like that helps a little bit, but it doesn't take care of it. So I had all these things that weren't really being resolved with the doctors. And so when my sister recommended this, we said, yeah, let's try it. We didn't actually go there for fertility help because I didn't know that I was having I didn't look at it as I was having trouble necessarily at that point because we weren't trying super hard. We had just gotten pregnant. So we weren't looking at it as like an infertility journey, just to get me healthy and functioning better because things outside of, well, I guess just within my everyday life, like my attitude, my moods, my distractibility, just so many things were seeming to get like getting worse. So I said, okay, yeah, sorry, my my baby. Um
I love
is-
extra guests.
yeah. Just decided to just take my health on and see what happened. And that just kind of happened to come out of it. We weren't doing a parasite and mold detox. We were told that you don't want to get pregnant while doing that, or you don't want to be doing it while pregnant. So like we weren't really trying. And so as soon as we found out, we stopped. There's no harm to the babies or anything. It ended up just being a very positive, unexpected outcome sooner than we were expecting.
I love that. I've gone through my own functional medicine journey, and I just know like how supportive and great it can be to just balance your body. And so I'm really glad that was such a great outcome for you. How did the health challenges that you had before prepare you for motherhood? As a lot of us know, like having those chronic issues is not easy mentally or physically.
Oh, that's a good question. I would think that maybe I just, like most of my life, I just had to suck it up and deal with it and push through, right? You can't call into work every time you have a headache or a stomach ache. We just don't have that luxury. So unless things were really bad, I would just push through and go do my sports and go to work and just kind of go to school, when I got my master's, and just kind of do what we had to do. And same thing with motherhood. When you're sick, don't really have a lot of options. You can't take PTO from your kids. you you have to push through when you're not feeling well or when you're tired because you're up all night. When the babies are screaming or crying and you don't know what's wrong, you just still have to go through and deal with it. So I guess maybe that was the best way that it helped prepare me.
I think it's really important to touch on that we do. I can't really speak to other countries too much just from like basic research about how they get longer times off of work than we do in America, and all they get more institutional support and more government support. But like you said, it's like not everybody gets that luxury, and we very much live in a culture of grind and suck it up and push
Yep,
yourself so you're at your limit. So I think that's a really
absolutely.
important parallel to point out, that you went from living in the suck it up, push through grind, and then motherhood kind of came along and you were already ready from it,
Yeah.
unfortunately, from those things. So thanks for that, for going through that, because I do think it's really important. And a lot of our listeners are going to be able to relate to having to suck it up because it's just not feasible to take that much PTO for your kids. So that's really important. And then I do want to ask about your birth plan, but I do want to ask you before that just about institutional support. Like when you did become a mother, I'm curious, like, did the hospitals say, like, these are all the things we have to support you in postpartum? These are all the things that we have for you? Or were you just kind of like, here's your babies, good luck? Bye.
They kind of a little bit of both. They had a, where I was at least, they had an envelope and packet full of information to take home and read. They don't go over it with you, right? They'll point out a few things like, hey, if you're having lactation, help, here's this. They probably said something about mental health. I don't remember because to me that wasn't an issue at the time. It was feeding my babies and like keeping them alive, right? I didn't factor in my mental health or my postpartum hormones or anything at all. Now, they had someone come before we left and talk about the hormone crash and what that looks like there ahead of time. They said they had resources, but it wasn't like a, hey, let's sit down and talk about them. Do you really need these? And I think appropriate screening. I think it was just like, they're here. Ask us more if you want to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I've heard that too, like in the past, but I'm not a mother, and so I've never been through this experience. But just from the outside, I think I hear this story a lot where they're like, here's a bunch of information. And I'm thinking in my head, you're giving a mother who just went through birth a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of information when she's already overloaded. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I think there's the work to be done in that area.
Absolutely. And I think that had I known more about maybe a doula and what all that looks like and had someone else outside of the institution on my team, I think that that would have been better and that would have prepped me more. But as far as the institution goes, yeah, they just, and this was just, I can only speak of where I was for this birth. I was somewhere else for my second birth and I went with midwives with the OB or with the twins. I didn't have that opportunity. I was forced at that place to go with doctors just in case you needed a C-section and all that stuff, right? So I didn't even have the option of going the midwife route. So it seemed like it was still just a number. The OBs, they're timed with their appointments, so they're quick. If you don't have any more questions, okay, I'll see you later. So I do wish that at all appointments, midwife or not, especially with the OBs, that they could take more time and really try and get to know you and really listen and like problem solve for you when you don't even realize that there's a problem or could be a problem, right? Like I feel like they need to do better with seeing certain signs and things or could do better. And maybe that would help as well.
I agree. This is definitely a story I've heard quite a few times.
Yeah.
Did your birth plan go as you organized with the twins, or was it like chaotic or different than you imagined?
It was different than I imagined. Luckily, I was able to deliver both of them vaginally, so I did not need a C-section. They were head down. Um, but my water ended up breaking at home at 35 weeks. And I thought I was going 38. I was making it all the way till they were going to have to induce me, but I wasn't going to get induced. Like I didn't want that. So obviously with that, I knew I only had so much. Oh no. We fell over and bumped our head. I knew that I was going to have a lot of flexibility based on having twins and the uncertainty of what that would look like and how quickly something could change, right? So, with both of my babies being head down, there was a high chance that the second one could flip. So, it was interesting with the birth plan is that some of the doctors did try encouraging me to have a C section before even asking me what I wanted. So, that was really frustrating. Um, but then I had enough that were like, oh no, do it, go for it, head down, let's do it. Um, so I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because I ended up being induced, but then because there's twins, it's high risk, so they have everything much more monitored. I'm assuming, and I wasn't progressing fast at all despite my water breaking. So I wanted to walk around. I wanted to do as much naturally as possible. I knew I wanted an epidural because I said if I'm going to push two of these babies out, like I want a little bit of help. It's very intimidating to me, and but I didn't want any other medication and only the epidural at the last minute. Well, I wasn't progressing, so they kept pushing the pitocin on me, which was very frustrating, and they kept wanting to check and see how far I was dilated. But when your water breaks, they say you're more at risk for infection. So that's why they wanted to do it. Well, they kept checking me, which is the risk of infection, right? Um, so it was just very confusing. And I felt like there was a lot of pressure still to just be induced and get it over with. And I see the reasons why. Um, but they did not let me walk around and move like I wanted to. We did a little bit at first, and as soon as I started progressing past the one, they're like, okay, now you're progressing. We need to have continuous monitoring on you. And they didn't have a mobile one. So I was basically strapped to the wall by a 4-foot tether or whatever it is.
Oh my gosh.
And I could only get up to go to the bathroom. So I tried going to the bathroom as much as I could just to get up and move around. But then they had to get back because I wanted to monitor the babies the whole time.
That sounds so intense. And like you said, you understand why there's additional monitoring for, two babies, but still it sounds like it would be really frustrating when you have this very specific idea about I know a lot of people, a lot of moms that have this very specific plan and then they feel frustrated and pushed into something else. And that would be really
Oh
hard.
yeah. Yeah, it was because like clearly what I was doing with the movement was working, right? So why stop that? It was seemed completely counterintuitive just to like force to give me medicine to get it going, right? Like now what I'm doing is starting. It may be slow, but it's working. So I just didn't feel really heard and I felt a lot of pressure. Um, and so my water broke at 1:30 a.m. And then I think by like 4 or 5, I finally got the Pitocin, because I was just frustrated and fed up. Like, well, nothing's working. I haven't changed an hour since you put me here. You're not going to get me up. So I honestly felt like I had no choices. Um, but with that, I said, okay, well, if you're giving me the Pitocin, then give me the epidural because I heard that those cramps or those contractions suck. So I said, if the natural ones are bad enough, then I don't want to feel the other ones. So, and that is actually what helped me progress, I think, was a combination of the two.
And what was the main I'm sure there was, like, several main differences, but you had the twins first, and then when you had
Mhm.
your daughter, what was the difference between those 2 experiences with the birth plan?
Oh my gosh. So I had a very I was planning on doing my daughter, my singleton, completely unmedicated. I had a doula. I was doing the whole thing natural this time. Like I just delivered twins and that was easy, like not for what it was for me, it was like not bad. I can do this unmedicated. I know it. Well, long story short, I ended up having a placental abruption and needed a C-section because she was not even engaging anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
So that was not in my plan at all. It never crossed my mind that I would need a C-section because I didn't with the twins. And that was our story for her.
what was your postpartum experience like after you had the twins? 2 babies is a lot. Most moms go home with just 1 baby, and they're still dealing with a lot of things postpartum. What is the experience like with 2?
Well, my experience was worse than I thought at the time. I thought, I'm a new mom. I've got twins. Of course, I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed, right? I didn't see how much I was struggling and how short my fuse was. I mean, I had mom rage. I had what are the thoughts called? The intrusive thoughts still. I was not sleeping. We tried our best to keep him on a schedule. And n- I didn't know many people with twins. I had one person who had twins before that I kind of used as a resource, but we weren't super close friends. So anyone who I would really talk to, they would just tell me, oh, well, just do this with your baby. But it's different with two. So that was then frustrating on top of it. And the hormone shift for me was pretty brutal. I don't know if there's anything to it, but I wonder if because I had two boys, like with all that testosterone, if that made it worse, like all that testosterone and then down to nothing. I don't know. But I kind of have a theory in that. So maybe I'll research it someday, but I haven't cared enough to since.
Season 2 episode.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but it was bad. My family saw it, but they didn't say anything. Go, they'd ask me, and I was like, "No, I'm just tired. I'm just tired." And even when I went for my 6-week checkup, she asked me, and I said, "Well, everyone keeps asking me if I'm okay, and thinking I should talk to someone, but I feel like I'm just tired, so I don't know. Like I really didn't know in the moment how bad I was." Until the fog started lifting and the hormones started balancing again and I felt like I could breathe, that I realized how much I had been struggling.
In hindsight, when you look back on those moments and how, your family saw things and your friends saw things and people in your inner circle saw things and you just told them a story, how would you have liked them to dive a little deeper or maybe ask different questions? How would you have liked them to force you to get a little more support or maybe a little more help because you didn't know you needed it?
I think and that's really hard because I could say one thing now, and in the moment when I was hormonal, it could have been something completely different.
Right.
um, so right now, I think that if they could have shown me, like, said, "Hey, I don't know if you recognize, but this is how you've been acting or saying, or this is what's going on," like, kind of told me what they were seeing, more instead of just kind of asking. And I appreciate that everyone was being gentle, because there's really, if you're hard about it, I think it could have really made things worse for me and the relationships that I had at the time. Um, like even with my mom, like it could have made things really hard, and we were living with them at the time. So, I think maybe if they would have just been like, hey, I'm seeing this, I'm noticing this, do you think that it could be signs of this? Why don't I go to the doctor with you? Because when I went by myself, which was fine. I mean, like I wouldn't expect anything different. But if they were really worried, that might have been a good thing to help me, so that they could have said, well, we're seeing X, Y, and Z, and she's acting like this or crying all the time, and it doesn't seem like it's just fatigue and exhaustion and blah blah blah.
Really like that. I think it's really important for people to remember that even the women that become moms that are strong and independent and are, you always see them out doing things by themselves and taking care of their lives and taking care of everything. Those are almost the women you need to check on more
Yeah.
postpartum, because they will say things like, I'm just tired, I'm just this. But I like how you kind of put that into a little package of like, these are the questions that you need to be asking those women. Like, you need to tell them what you're observing and hold up a mirror to them in those moments, especially
Mhm.
if you're close to them. I'm wondering what a typical day looks like for you now. I know you have twins and a daughter. How do you
Yeah.
balance your needs and theirs every day?
Oh, I don't know that I do. Uh,
Thank
I
you for honestly.
yeah, some days I don't feel like I get to my needs at all. Some days I don't even realize I ate lunch, even though I'm making lunch and doing stuff with them. You know, Sometimes my daughter will be awake and I'll be tending to her, and then it's like naps are all throughout the day because they're not on the same nap schedule usually. So I don't feel like I'm balancing that well at all most days. If I get some decent sleep, then I feel like that will help get me through. But we've been sleeping so bad for about a year now that the days just feel like survival mode still most of the time.
I think that's really important to acknowledge because I think a lot of parents feel that way, especially when they have multiples. And I really appreciate your honesty on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. We do the best we can, and my husband is a great support, and my parents, thank God that we live so close to them and that they're supportive, because they help out to where, if I've been really, really struggling, where I'm so exhausted, where I'm just not being nice and can't handle anything, I can ask for someone to come and I can take a nap. When my husband's home, I get more of what I need then, because I have a second set of hands. But I mean, have 3 kids under 2, it's hard. They're so very dependent. Like even though my twins are 2.5 now, even though they're more independent and they can do more on their own, I still have to keep them on a schedule. I still have to feed them everything. I have to change their diapers and do all of that still. So keep them somewhat entertained so they don't destroy everything we own. you know. So it's a lot of times it is just like survival mode until I get a second set of hands. And then I have to choose, do I want to worry about me? Do I want to then pick up the house that's been neglected? Or do I want to spend time with all of us as a family? And I wouldn't say that there's a typical day, because I I guess I choose based on like what I need. If I need sleep, I sleep. Otherwise, I usually don't choose me. It's one or the other.
A lot of parents say with twins that they've noticed that they have like an unspoken bond between them. Have you noticed your boys have any unspoken connections with each other over the last 2.5 years?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. We've had like falls. Someone will fall and hurt themselves, nothing, severe, but then the other one starts crying and holding that body part.
Wow.
Um yeah. And it's like, how did you just feel that? Like, and they're not old enough to really know, to understand that, like, oh, he, because sometimes the one who was hurt doesn't even know that he hurt his knee, like isn't holding it or whatever it is. So they've done that. Definitely believe that they have their own language. they can talk now, but before the words started getting really good, they were still babbling so much, but they were having conversations, and then they would go do something like together. Um, so it was almost like they were, I don't know, having a secret meeting and plotting something.
Has your daughter picked up on that a little bit? I know she's really little, but has she tried to get in with the group and she's still kind of on the outside?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know if she has like that same bond, but she definitely wants to be one of them, and I think that's why she's um moving so fast with her walking and crawling and everything. I mean, she's 9 months and she's almost walking, and we're trying to slow her down as much as we can because we've got enough.
How has motherhood changed you?
um, I feel like that is a very tough question for me to answer because some days I think I could say, I don't know that it really has. But then other days, I feel like it has completely changed me. I always knew I wanted to be a mother, but I fill my cup socially. I am an extrovert. I love being around people. I love spending time with people. Like that's my love language is quality time. So I love meeting with my friends and family and just getting together. And I thought that I would just take my kids everywhere, and still always be that social. But since having them, I've really slowed down from going out. Maybe it's just because I'm so tired and don't want to take three small children with me. I don't know. But it's still a big difference is where I am a lot more comfortable being home and being just with my family and hanging out. And I don't mean just with my family, like in a negative way, but just with it just being us, that still fills my cup up now versus before, even before we had kids, me and my husband, I'd say like, hey, I'm going out for girls' night, or let's go out to this restaurant, or let's go out and do this. Um, but we stay home a lot more, happily stay home more.
It sounds like motherhood has filled your bucket in a different way. That smaller circle really makes you happy. That sounds
Yeah, it does. Most of the days, I mean, I still like my girls' nights and I still like to get out because some of the days, they drive me absolutely crazy and I need a break. But yeah, and it's kind of taught me to really focus on how I react and pay attention to how I'm reacting and responding to them, or just situations in general. Because as far as like my anger and emotions, am I going to get mad and blow up, or am I going to be able to stay calm and talk through things with them? I mean, not talk, I mean, they're two, so talk as far as a 2-year-old goes. Um, or do I need to, sorry, I just got distracted by her. um, I thought she was going to fall off of what she's standing up with.
this is motherhood doing a podcast.
Yes, absolutely. And it has taught me to really work on my patience more, which I feel like is probably always going to be an ongoing thing, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I just want to go back to something you said quick. And anybody out there that's a mom, let's normalize saying these kids are driving me nuts and I need to
Ye-
go away.
Yes.
'Cause I
Yeah.
feel like there's like a really big culture on social media of just being with your kids a lot and talking. Obviously, we want to talk lovingly about our family members and our children and all these things,
Hmm.
but as a mom, like moms are so overloaded. They're at their max.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're home all day, sometimes they're at work all day, and then they come home and they're
Hmm.
always a mom. So I love that you said that because that's allowed and it should be allowed more.
Absolutely, but following up with that, it's okay to like have both things exist too, right? Like,
Hmm.
yes, let's normalize it. But also by saying that, I've also seen people just being like, "You're driving me crazy. I don't want to be around you anymore," and kind of taking it a step, in my opinion, a step too far of like kind of bashing their kids. Like, you can be
Oh
frustrated with
yeah.
your kids and need a break and still love them. So I agree with you. I've seen a lot of like people just being, oh, everything's fine. My life is perfect and beautiful, and we get along so well, that Instagram perfection or whatever. And then there's like the opposite side of that as well, where it's like it almost seems like they're not appreciative to be parents and the roles that they have taken on. But both can exist. You can love your kids so much and be so happy to be around them, but then need a break and not have to put them down in that break. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Definitely just having a balance. And I think
Mhm.
just, I guess at the simplest level, just allowing yourself to be human and
Mhm.
just allowing yourself to have the experience that you're having.
Yeah, and give yourself some grace because it's hard. And people can give you advice, on what they did, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. And I've had, people almost seem annoyed when I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we tried it." And like, "Well, did you do it enough or long enough?" And it's like, just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for me, or vice versa. Whenever I give advice, I try and say, like, take it with a grain of salt. This is what worked for us, but it may not work for you, with, having that understanding and giving yourself grace just for showing up and trying. Sometimes, sometimes that's all you can do.
Exactly. What do you wish that more people understood about being the mom of multiples?
That it's not always as cute as it seems. Um, seriously, twins or multiples, they are so special. And growing up and having, their little buddy with them together all the time is wonderful. But also, that's not always the case. My boys right now seem to get along great. I have heard stories about, multiples where they don't get along, twins or more, to where it's not a good relationship. So just speaking on from mine, it's great, but it is so hard. It's I've had so many people tell me since they were born, "Oh, I always wanted twins." Here, sweetie. "Oh, I always wanted twins." And in my hormonal stage, that was something that made me so mad. So I guess for anyone who's listening, if you know a twin mom who is overloaded, maybe don't say I always wanted twins, because she'll probably want to punch you.
I think that's so valid. The last
Yeah.
question I have is if you could go back and just give yourself advice about, what it was going to be like being a twin mom and preparing yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Use your crew. Utilize the people who want to help you. Um, because it is hard, and you just have to have patience. And there are so many resources out there. Like, if you're having trouble feeding, get help. If you're having trouble with sleep, see if there's, something else going on. Like, is it colic or is it reflux, or is the baby not getting enough if you're nursing? So use the resources and use your people to help you out. If someone comes over and wants to help out and you just want to cuddle with your baby, ask if they could do, a load of laundry. Get it started, or do the dishes, because at the early on stage, it is very important to create that bond with our babies, right? And spend that time and do all the skin to skin and all the things as moms were told to do with our kids. So we don't always need help with someone holding the baby. Sometimes we do, especially if they're crying. Yeah, come on and take a turn. But use the people around you who are there. And for those who don't, I mean, that I feel for you, because that's got to be really hard. Find some way to have community support or something. Join a church, and a lot of people in churches, can help offer their support to come sit every once in a while, or find a local twin group and go there, and just something to make you not feel alone, because it can be very isolating, especially trying to take two out. And if people don't understand, they're like, "Yeah, just bring your babies. I brought mine." Like, cool, I'm glad you brought your one or your two kids that are 3 years apart, like, that's great. But just finding some sort of way to accept help and being in any sort of community to not feel alone.
I agree. I think that that's really helpful, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your
Yeah,
stories and being honest about motherhood and twin motherhood, and I really enjoyed chatting with you.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. If you'd like to connect with me or have an experience you'd like to share, shoot me an email at letstalkitoutproductions@gmail.com. If you liked our music, you can check out Quilter on Spotify. I Know How You Feel drops every other week. See you next time.